As a performer, your body is there.
Hi, I'm Mad Kate, and you're listening to S.W.E.A.T. Sexuality, Work, Extraction, Art, Theatrics. S.W.E.A.T. is a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body at work, where work is broadly defined as the labor of survival, the labor of care, creativity, and capital A art. How exactly do we define our work? And how does that work entangle and circumscribe our sexual identities, our creative lives, and the ways in which we provide care? How do we perform tasks, acts of care, and identities? Anchored in our always already racialized and sexualized bodies, our complex intersectionalities, these conversations are a means of relating through work to each other. I hope that they contribute to dialogues which normalize sex work and all work as deserving of respect, healthy conditions, and a living wage.
I think every cause concerns everyone, because when fascism comes for one group of people, it will come to the next group of people, and you are on the list as well. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe the day after. So when you fight for someone, you're also fighting for yourself.
This month's conversation is with Nadia Says. Nadia is the co-founder of creative freelancer platform Your Mom's Agency and co-founder of inclusivity advocacy network DIF-AFAO. She's also an educator, journalist, and consultant in the fields of culture, music business, music tech, and DEI.
When you're a Palestinian woman who gives birth without painkillers, that's definitely not feminist. And it's very strange that many people who call themselves feminist in the world refuse to talk about this issue.
Mostly based in Berlin, Nadia is connected to the creative scenes of Beirut, Marseilles, Detroit, and Los Angeles. Today we'll talk about working in the music business, as well as Solitunes, a multi-genre compilation featuring 12 collaborations of music and visual art by over 40 artists who've come in solidarity to advocate for Palestinian artists.
I think maybe I was always a working body because I was always industrious, busy and trying to get things done. My first petition was at school when I was 7 years old. A petition that I organized to get more food during lunch break.
So do you feel like from a young age you were kind of an activist?
Yeah, so also something my mother told me because I don't remember. When I was 4 or 5, she would get on the bus and buy the tickets, and I would run to the back of the bus. And by the time she came to the back of the bus, I was giving a talk to whoever would listen about feminism.
That's interesting. How did you decide that you were a feminist?
Because I saw my mother doing everything. Yeah, and she was a woman, she was my mother, so for me it meant that women did everything.
When I think about feminism, for example, I think it's very experiential in the sense that one doesn't necessarily like go and read about it and go, oh, that's an interesting belief, but maybe has some kind of experience on their own body that might lead them to be interested in this. I'm curious if that resonates for you.
If you asked me maybe 6 months ago, I'd have given you a fantastic definition of feminism. And now things are blurry because it's a lot happening. And I think that being anti-colonialism, being feminist, or being pro-ecology, I cannot see the difference anymore because it's all connected. For example, ecology. Who suffers the most when we destroy the planet? It is the people most marginalized. So we cannot talk about ecology without talking about class, without talking about geography. When there is war, who suffers the most? It's the children and the women and the gender diverse people. I understand that some people need to educate themselves more, to become experts, to have all the facts, etc. But from where I stand, I think it's just about being pro-death or pro-life. Not in against abortion way, yeah. But like, do you want humanity to survive or do you want humanity to die? I think that's just what it is at this point.
This has been something that I've seen a lot in what I consider your work. I have the sense that you have the desire to do a lot of the things in the background that are, I perceive as feminist, to promote other women and queer people. I'm curious what you think about that.
What I told to my shrink one time is that I think I have some kind of moral and work OCD. If I see something that can be done, I have to do it. And very often, women, gender diverse people, queer people, marginalized people don't do the things they could be doing for themselves because they don't have time, they don't have the tools, they don't have the self-confidence. And so I like to jump in there and give them some tips, do little things, little push. And I don't think it's a lot, to be honest. I would like to be able to do more if I had more power, but it's just little things that I think make things a little bit better for their career.
How would you describe the work that you do?
Recently, I call myself a cleaning lady. I do anything that needs to be done if I know how to do it, or sort of how. The goal is that everything in the end is done and proper and clean. I always say, when you go for surgery to the hospital, it's great to have a good surgeon, but if the hospital is dirty, you will die anyway. So cleaning and keeping things tidy and ordered is very important. I don't know if there's a thing I haven't done in this industry besides singing on stage myself, but pretty much everything else I've done. Organizing events, marketing campaign, consulting, teaching workshops or at professional schools, universities, kind of managing artists, promotion, helping building websites, even though I'm not a technological person, advising on social media, creating content, doing DI consulting or PR, which was not my favorite, but I've done it anyways.
How would you define this moment that we're living in, the state of work? I've heard of many people talk about workaholism or being too focused on productivity.
I think there's something very strange about work in our society where people who do the least get the most rewards and the higher status. People who do things that are bad for the world or the people who get the most rewarded, and people who do the most useful things, like picking up the trash in the street or regarded as, having no value. So I think we need to change our sense of priority and look at the reward system as well. Workaholic, I don't know if that's a thing. It's nice to work. If you love your job, why shouldn't you work? I think that's fine. And being productive, why should you waste time and energy not to achieve something? It's good to be productive and efficient. The more efficient we are, the less we have to work.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this idea around what is the opposite of productivity. It feels as though sometimes the opposite is consumption. Like as though that would be a more ideal form. But obviously without money, we can't consume. And I also question the idea of always consuming as a way of existing in leisure.
For me, the opposite of productivity is what we do in society right now. Because to be productive, you need to be sustainable. Otherwise, you're going to do a lot of things. You're going to have a peak and then you fall down. Also, productivity means there needs to be a tomorrow. If there's no planet, there's no tomorrow. So productivity, the opposite of productivity is hyper-capitalism, I think, is what we're in right now. It's not productive, it's just destroying everything.
Yeah, it's completely unsustainable, isn't it? What do you feel like are some of your goals through the kind of work that you do? What kind of values you'd like to see?
My highest value is truth. So I like when things are honest and truthful and correct. And when we only see cis white men on TV or on the radio, that is not correct. And that's why I don't like it. It's not a moral thing that, kumbaya, I love everyone or anything like this. It's just that I think it has very little value and interest to exclude certain people from the arts, because then the art you get is not interesting. So, and again, sustainability, if you exclude people from the art, these people will not feel good, and this is bad for society, and everyone will feel it, including the rich cis white men that want to exclude these people. They are hurting themselves, actually, even though they don't realize it. So for me, it's not about humane value. It's more about, I think it doesn't work when you exclude other people.
So representation, in a sense, is about representing a more truthful reality?
Yes. And also, I want to be safe. I think everyone wants to be safe. And safety cannot exist when some people are oppressed.
This is kind of an interesting question around safety. I think the drive for safety can also be a drive towards violence, towards others. Do you have thoughts on that?
If you have to defend yourself to be safe, then yeah, violence might be necessary, but that means that something has failed. If someone comes, wants to attack you and you have to punch them back, there's been a problem. So usually safety would be something that stems from peace and from everyone not necessarily liking each other, but accepting to live next to each other. And yeah, when some people don't want this, you may have to defend yourself and you may have to be violent. One of the things I don't like about violence is that when you're violent towards someone else, you hurt yourself as well. It does not feel good to be violent.
Do you feel safe in your body?
So in my body, in the body itself, my body is not safe because I'm chronically ill. And doctors have been trying to, get me to go to the hospital, whatever, and I'm not going there. But what makes me angry is what has been done to my body by other people out of greed, mostly, and that has made my body unsafe to me.
How do you feel in your body as you do your work, as you're read as a body by others?
So not many people know I'm chronically ill. So sometimes people, ask me to do things that someone who looks like me should be able to do, but I'm not. So I tell them, I'm like, yeah, I'm tired, or I can't do this, or I have this medical issue. And people have to take it or leave it. And sometimes they leave it and I lose jobs. But it's, in my opinion, more their loss than mine because I can always find work. But I guarantee they will not find easily someone who cares about work as much as I do.
Do you feel like you are able to create a environment in your work where it's able to be sustainable for your body? Like you've found your own limits?
I had found my limits until my health got worse. And then I actually had to see doctors who told me that I have to take breaks, which I guess is something that most people know, but I did not used to take breaks. I used to be able to work 12 hours with a 30-minute lunch break, That's not something I can do anymore. So they told me about pacing. I'm not a very good student, but I try.
I guess it's a stereotype. I'm wondering if it's true. The music industry is male-dominated, is white-dominated. What is it like to work as a woman and as a person who's read as non-white?
It depends where I go. There are some places where it's never an issue. And then there are some places where people have issues and then it's a problem. But when it's a problem, I try to extract myself as soon as possible. There's one place where I stayed for 1.5 years because it was problematic, but I thought this place was like the Holy Grail. And many people quit because they couldn't take the racism and the sexism, the ableism and everything. And after I quit, there was a little scandal. And I commented on LinkedIn saying, by the way, the reason I left is because you guys had a racism issue. And the CEO reached out to me. We had a 1-hour discussion. And as I suspected, he was not aware of what his managers were doing in his company. And he was shocked and not happy about it. And there were some changes after that discussion. So I was like, it's sad I could not benefit from the changes I participated to, but at least some people now are having a bit of a better time.
It seems like, even when I listen to you now, that you move quietly. Somehow I perceive this, but like with a lot of power. You're like a force behind change.
I can stand up and scream. But in many situations, if I see that there's an angle where I can talk to people privately or plant a seed that maybe will do something in the future, I do this. So I think all methods are good depending on the situation.
What are some of the challenges in working with others towards common goals, towards finding collectivity with others?
So I will go to the compilation that you and I both worked on with, it's over 40 of us on this compilation. So that's a big group of people. So it's called Solitunes. It's 12 tracks. All tracks are collaborations because it's a compilation that's about solidarity, hence the name Solitunes. So with this compilation, I wanted to show that the Palestinian cause is not just for Palestinian people or, certain groups of people. It concerns everyone. And I think every cause concerns everyone because when fascism comes for one group of people, it will come to the next group of people, and you are on the list as well. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe the day after. So when you fight for someone, you're also fighting for yourself. And also because since the beginning of the war in Syria now, I would say 13 years ago, something like this, the media try to put us into groups. You're pro this, against this, you're left, right. I mean, left, right at this point really does not make sense anymore. But also it's like, oh yeah, if you're pro-Palestinian, you're pro-Muslim, you're anti-queer, you're anti-vax, and you're pro-Trump. I'm like, what? So I think it's possible from people of different horizons not to have necessarily the same political opinions in the detail, but just to think that, oh, I want to live in the world where everyone is safe, everyone has enough, and and that's it. And that's a very simple notion. But in our society, most people want to live in a world where some people have too much, and that means that some people will not have enough. And some people need to be on the top by crushing others at the bottom, which again is not sustainable, it's not safe, makes no sense. I think these people really got it wrong, not from a humanistic point of view, but really from a logical point of view. It makes no sense to think like this. So that's what this compilation is about. It's about the logic behind people of different communities, different groups coming together for a cause that is a representation of many other causes against colonialism, for feminism, because when you're a Palestinian woman who gives birth without painkillers, that's definitely not feminist. And it's very strange that many people who call themselves feminist in the world refuse to talk about this issue.
How do we talk to each other in order to collaborate, especially when we're coming from very different perspectives? What, for you, are the most challenging things that you've encountered in trying to create collectivities?
I have to say this is a little bit of a pattern in my life. I go somewhere, I'm very trusting and very enthusiastic, and I'm super pumped up. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. It's going to be awesome. And then as things move forward, I notice little things that make me uncomfortable. And then at some point, it's not discomfort anymore. It's anger, frustration. And then I'm like, is this really how things are going to go? Because if it is, I need to leave. I can't be into this project. And many people look at me thinking, but you've done so much. How can you give up on everything you've done? And also when you go somewhere else, it will be the same shit. Racism is everywhere. So I worked in a school, for example, and the money was good. But after a while, I was like, sorry, this is too much racism. I'm out. And there was another person who was a racialized woman, and she experienced even more racism than me there. And she was staying there and defending them. And she was like, but when you walk away, the next place where you go, it will be the same. And I was like, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I'm not afraid of the future, and I will take my chances. And I'm not going to give these people my expertise and my energy just because maybe somewhere else is not better. Then, okay, let's all lay down and die. That's not how I want to live my life. So forming collectivity, I think you take a leap and then it all comes down in the wash. Some people will stay with you and some people will leave. That's fine. And when I look back, there are some people I'm like, wow, I've known this person for 10 years and they're not my best friend, but we get along and we do things and it's working. So that's fine,
So for the compilation, you're going to be putting it on Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, Bandcamp exclusive because, okay, despite everything that's been happening with Bandcamp, I still think it's the most ethical DSP out there. Also, I know someone there who has lowered the commission that Bandcamp takes on the compilation because they know we're going to donate it for a good cause. And they're going to highlight us because they like the music that we put on the compilation. So, and it's just Bandcamp is so transparent compared to other DSPs. So I think Bandcamp is the way to go to collect money and also for me to be able to tell everyone what has been collected, when, and how we're going to send it and all these things. So Bandcamp is transparent with me and I'm able to be transparent with all the artists.
Okay, you've been running this label for the last 12 years. You must have seen so many changes now. Yeah, what are your feelings about how artists are making money in the industry now? What's the weather report?
The weather report is that artists are no longer making money, and this is very dangerous for society because we're looking at a society where you will listen to songs made by AI and by rich people, and the working class will be completely excluded from the arts. Not only the quality is going to be horrible, but the soul of society will die because we cannot survive without quality arts. So it's very urgent that artists are able again to make income from their art. And this is not going to happen with all the Spotifys and Live Nations of this world. So we need change not just at a personal, local level, but at a corporation level. And I think the governments need to jump in. If by now they have not understood that arts are one of the most important glues in society, they've understood nothing.
What kinds of things do you think we can do to mitigate this? I'm really curious to hear, details of this.
The first thing we can do is use the technology we have. So at the moment, we have AI making music. This is so stupid. AI needs to be distributing royalties from everywhere where the music is played. This is what AI needs to be doing, you know. We have a lot of technological means to know what money needs to go where. However, a lot of institutions, such as the GEMA, are refusing to use it. I'm not sure if it's because they want to protect the big earners and themselves, or it's because they are, most of them, dinosaurs and they're just afraid of change. I'm actually friendly with someone at the GEMA. We have this discussion sometimes. I can see he wants to change things, but how do you move a dinosaur? It's not easy. But that's the first thing, using technology for fair share and payment and splits, using Web3 to put splits right as you distribute the song. And then you don't have to call your label or your distributor or publisher 10 times a year. The money comes directly to you. This is technologically possible. By the way, some governments are not allowing splits on Web3. Why? Because Web3 is for pedophilia and Bitcoin, I don't know, whatever. But this is one of the solutions we could be having. There's lots of solutions in technology. I'm not talking about using technology the way Meta uses it, you know? I'm talking about using technology by the people, for the people. And then the other thing is, it's not something that's just about culture. The big man at the top, why is that person making 20, 30K a month, while the artists that make this existence possible of the CEO of Spotify make €3 at the end of the year? Why should anyone think this is normal and fair and logical? So it's like everything else in society, people have the wrong priorities. The people who make the music are important. The people who clean are important. The people who count their money in their office are not important.
How do we come towards those changes? You know, sometimes I get so frustrated. I kind of throw my hands up and not knowing where to start.
I think anywhere is good to start. It's like creating a collectivity. You start however you can, And then as you go and you get more informed and you observe more, you get more experience, then you're like, okay, I can refine my process. But at the beginning, you just have to start. I think starting is the most difficult. And then once you're in, don't burn out. Self-care is also resistance. But yeah, just start anywhere and then refine the process later.
One of the ways I worked with you in the past was through these collaborations, these virtual partnerships you were helping to promote or to set up. What about that was fascinating for you?
Fascinating, I don't know, but for me it was a bit of a lifesaver because it was during COVID. We were all very isolated, and to be able to connect myself with people and to connect people to each other, it just warmed my heart. I think there was more, for once, this is a project that had more human value than content value. I mean, the music was great, and some people still make music and we release stuff. It was successful, fine. But in that occurrence, it was more about not letting anyone being alone in their room, desperate and reconnecting. I had some in-person event planned with the Goethe Institute, and of course it was cancelled. And I gave them a call and I was like, what are you guys going to do with this money? Because I know that when you don't use money, it means you don't get it the year after. So you have to use it. And I was like, look, I have an idea for you to use it. We're going to connect people online and they will make music without having ever met. And we're going to do this with different cities where I know people have maybe less financial means than in other cities, but they are very creative. And I was lucky they said yes. And they even got other partners, the French Institute. And then from my side, I got brands. So we could give prizes to people who made the best collaborations. Best, quote unquote. I don't know if something is better than another thing, but like the collaboration that stood out the most, let's say, we had a jury. So yeah, it was something to connect people digitally with institutional money and prizes from music tech brands. And why the jury system was interesting is because I'm very frustrated with how grants are awarded to people, generally speaking. So I chose jury members from cities that were not the cities where we had the artist. So there were very little chance that they knew each other. So this was the first point. Second, it was a semi-rotating jury. A fully rotating jury is problematic because it lacks continuity. And a non-rotating jury, then you only get the opinion of 2 or 3 or 4 people. So semi-rotating, meaning there was always 2 jury members that were there the whole time, and 1 jury member that was rotating each month. And of course, the jury members were diverse in any way you can think of.
Through this, did you have thoughts about what it means to collaborate, not only cross-culturally, but I would say, I feel like culture is a shorthand for so many different kinds of differences in perspective that come down to class and to power globally, to how money has impact in a community, so that if there is grant money awarded, it impacts differently where it lands.
So I can tell you for grant money, recently I applied for a grant and it was going to be in Berlin and in Tunis, in Tunisia. And I had this discussion because usually I like to pay everyone for the same work, the same. But then my friend Tunisia was like, hey, this kind of money in Tunisia is kind of crazy, but I can see that what you're paying people in Berlin is really low. And we decided to do an exact split between the cost of life in Tunis and Berlin and what we would pay people usually. So it means people in Berlin they got more than people in Tunis, but still less that life would cost in Berlin. It wasn't an easy decision, and I don't know if it was the right decision. Maybe next time I would do it in a different way. But it's not just being equal, it's being equitable. So being equal is very easy, but being equitable, you have to put your brain in it. And in terms of collaboration, I'm amazed at how artists collaborate. It's a little bit magical. Like, when I put all of you 13 people on the stage in Berghain and you made music for an hour and a half, that was just, artists. Like, how can society not think that art is so important when you guys can do that?
Yeah, that was a really beautiful moment. I mean, what I also liked about it, which I didn't feel, I don't remember you promoting, was that when we showed up, it was people that I would read. I want to be careful because I may be misrepresenting. I don't want to, but I read as Flinta bodies.
Yeah, and it was on purpose. First, I'm a little bit of a sexist. I mean, I don't think by now it's a secret, you know. I try not to be, but, you know, we are what we are and we have to deprogram ourselves. But the reason I did this is because it was the first time I was doing an improvisation on that scale. And there's these studies that where you put two people of the same gender in front of each other, they can mirror each other easily. And when you put people of different genders in front of each other, it's more difficult for them to mirror each other. So I thought if I put all non-cis men, I think I'm putting more chances on my side to have a good performance. And I did not promote it as such, because why would I? People put 13 men on stage all the time. Why do I have to say I put 13 femmes and non-binary people on stage? So I just didn't say it. And nobody talked about it. People were just happy it was a great performance.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about intersectionality and what that means to you.
I think it means everything, especially at the moment, because understanding intersectionality is how you can feel solidarity with people that are different from you and suffer and are oppressed in a different way from yourself. Because, you know, if you're like, oh, I'm a racialized woman, and you see another racialized woman oppressed in the same way as you, of course you're going to feel sympathy. But when you see someone else, for example, if I see a cis white man that's being oppressed, maybe my first feeling is like, haha, you know. But no, we have to go over this and be like, no. Whether I feel or not for this person does not matter, but I have to show solidarity with them, because when they are less oppressed, I'm also myself less oppressed. Because it's not true that, let's say, there's this kind of lie on the middle, right, left wing, whatever you want to call them, that, racialized people are dangerous, but hooray for queer people. That's a lie, because fascist people put all of us in the same bag. So although there is maybe like an instinct, you know, to go with your tribe, with your community, with your clique, thinking about intersectionality is how you're going to be like, no, actually, we're all on the same boat, even if we don't have the same background, same ideas. At the end of the day, we all have similar value and goals, even though they're not exactly the same. So, like, we're raising money for a community recording studio in Ramallah, which happens to be in Palestine. It's difficult for people there to find a place that they can afford where they can record. And that's why we're raising money. And I think that's anti-capitalistic because it's a community place. It's feminist because women are usually the ones that have less access. It's also for queer people because one of the people who works there on a regular basis happens to be queer. It's anti-colonialist because it's in Palestine. I mean, you know, it's everything and it's nothing. It's just nice for human beings to have a place to go and record music, and that's why we're raising funds.
That's beautiful. I mean, obviously, that's a way in which artists can enact change broadly, but I'm curious, what do you feel like art itself can do now? Let's say someone makes a song. What does it do in the world?
It definitely depends on the song. If you make a Taylor Swift song, you make money on Spotify, so that's one thing you achieve. If you make a song like you did for the compilation, then you're going to move people. And I think depending on what's happening in the person's life at the moment when they listen your song, maybe it will make them sad, you know, if they were already sad. Maybe it will give them hope. Maybe they will think about what you say in the words, which is about connection and connecting to the other. I think hopefully good art can give a voice to the people whose voice is being taken from them. Hopefully it can also help people express feelings in a society where we're not allowed to have feelings. We walk around, we see a homeless person on the street, and if I had feelings, I would just sit with them and cry for hours, right? That's what a normal, healthy person would do. But I can't do that. Instead, I pretend I have not seen anything, bottle my feelings, and go home. So with art, we are allowed to express feelings. And I hope art can help us heal a little bit, find 4 minutes of peace when we listen to a song. And for 4 minutes, we can mend the broken pieces of our heart and brain and face the next 4 minutes.
One practice that I think belongs to you that we haven't spoken a lot about is writing. I mean, I know that you write journalistically. Do you also write creatively, journal? What is your writing practice like? I'm curious.
I used to journal for about, I think, 8 years as a preteen and teenager. As a young adult, I found my journals, read them, threw them away. I was embarrassed. I was like, why did I care about such stupid things? And that boy looked at me and, oh my God. I also wrote a lot about my cat. I think that cat was the love of my life, but I have written a series of poems and short stories. It was inside. I put it out on the paper. It was itchy, and now it's no longer itchy. During the first weeks of COVID, where I was stuck at home on my own, I wrote a short story, and that's the only creative speaking I've done in the past 15 years or something. And I think that story is great, if I can say so myself. But I'm not sure I have another one in me. So I think if I were a musical person, I would make music. I hear music in my head all the time, but I have no idea how to put it on paper or on instruments or anything. I don't have these skills. So writing is the one thing that I know how to take a pen and to the paper. So that's why it's my outlet.
I wanted to ask you about the article you recently wrote for Mixmag, what you were writing about there.
This article is mostly words of other people, so it was more about curating people's quotes than writing something. And it's about how here in Berlin, when you show solidarity with the Palestinian cause, you suddenly get cancelled and fired and thrown in jail and other unpleasant things.
Yeah, and it's also been affecting funding, right? Yeah, do you want to speak briefly about the state of funding in Germany right now?
I have to say it's nothing new. I had a campaign with some friends already, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago about the same issue. So it's not new. What's new is that now people are putting words on it. It's like when Trump did the Muslim ban. I mean, sorry to say, but I was laughing because the Muslim ban is effective at all times, no matter who's the president. Trump just put a name on it, which was not nice and you shouldn't do it. But the Muslim ban exists no matter what. When you travel to certain countries, to non-global South countries. So, and it's the same now with the funding. People talk a lot about it. We have someone from the city who decided to put a name on it. Let's talk for a minute about the fact that this person is Black. And I don't know him, but I would imagine being a Black person at the city, you must suck. This is how I read the situation, When discrimination affects you, it does something to your brain. And either you like, fuck discrimination, or you like, how can I bypass discrimination and fit in? So I actually would love to have a chat with Joe and like human to human and see what's going on with him, because I cannot believe a person who has faced racism is doing this to other people. Joe made Oyun shut down. And people said, yeah, discrimination, blah, blah, blah. Yes, sure, but actually, let's not forget that 2 or 3 years ago now, the Goethe Institute was defunded by half. What's happening in Germany and the whole of Europe is that governments are no longer willing to fund the arts as much as before.
Absolutely.
When you fund the arts less, you save money so you can send bombs to other countries, because that's what our governments like to do for some reason. Also, when you give less funding, you can monitor more, because it's, there's less projects happening. So you can surveillance what's happening, which I think is the goal. I think the states have realized, hey, we give money to the art. How come this art is not propaganda that benefits us? So I think this is what's happening. Governments are like, hey, first off, we're going to save money for bombs. Second off, we're going to monitor things. And third, we will be giving money to people who serve our purpose. So how do you save the purpose of a state? There's propaganda, of course. There's the poster child, like poster child for queer freedom in Germany or whatever, But there also needs to be a little bit of subversive stuff. They will not fully cut subversive stuff, because if you do not have subversive stuff, then you don't have anyone to fight. So you still need to keep a little bit of things that they find problematic so that people can get offended. And then you can justify more surveillance and cutting funds more. And if we talk about society in general, more police and etc. So OU discrimination, yes, but mostly the government wants to cut funds and they will take any excuse that they will find.
Yeah, it's really scary, isn't it? That said, I mean, I used to live in the United States. I wasn't a working artist there, but I can't imagine being a working artist there, because I don't think there's a whole lot of funding for the arts.
There is a little bit of funding. Usually the way it's distributed is way more democratic than here, because it's juries of other artists, and usually you have to defend your project publicly, or it's just way more transparent than here. But in the US, you have patrons, which we do not have in Europe, or not much. And while I'm sad the governments no longer want to fund arts as much, maybe it's okay. Because I think patrons might jump in, they will get a tax break. And there's also brands and corporations that can give us money. And it used to be that we wanted to take money from the state because it was cleaner than from corporations. But now it's not any cleaner. So it's like, let's take money from wherever. And usually when you take money from a corporation, there's much less accounting and reporting to do and much less strings attached. So if patrons and corporations jump in to fill the gap, we'll be okay. And actually, then we will do whatever we want, and it will be subversive.
I'm curious about this, because I feel like I wonder about the long-term effects, I suppose, of getting brand sponsorship, because I wonder about the bubble of how a lot of money is made through advertisement, but also because, I mean, ultimately, it's a drive towards more consumerism. Like, let's just say, like, tennis shoes produced somewhere where there's exploited labor. Is there the possibility to actually change these structures so that we have, that it affects the environment, it affects labor rights in a more positive way, and it's not just, producing art by being better consumers?
So first, not all brands are destructive. There are some brands I work with. I'm very happy and proud to work with them. They do their part for society. Maybe they're not perfect, but, they are pretty okay. So that's one avenue. And I think if Adidas keeps on making, supports the art and invites artists, etc., at some point, they will have to be like, oh, I think it's becoming a bit dangerous for us to use sweatshops. I think we may have to pay people properly because it's going to be better marketing for us. When you're an artist and you go to a brand, you can be like, hey, Adidas, do you think maybe we could, do this and that? At the moment, big brands like this tend to choose artists who will not say this to them. But I don't know, I think the younger people care a lot more about the environment, even though they sometimes not really care about anything else. But still, that's something. So maybe not, but this is what I hope.
Well, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. I mean, I'm thinking about like Congo and mining and our quest for the latest phones and for cobalt.
The problem of batteries is a very big problem, not just for the planet, but also a social, political issue. You know, very often we are sold something as being green, and that's a total lie. It's green with a taint of blood red, you know. Or maybe the extraction was greener, but because it's traveled half the world, it's no longer green, etc. So the green label, I'm like, no, unless I can do my research, I don't care. You know, I don't believe it.
I just came across something. I haven't read about it, so I can't really speak. But the green militarization.
Yeah, that's a nice joke.
What,
yeah, it's
what
funny.
is this? But I'd like to ask you a last question. I mean, I think you've answered it in many ways, but it's about like your own self-worth around your work. Do you do what you love, and what is the personal value of your work in the world?
Well, I can't talk about this. I think people have to decide what the value is to them for what I do. But when I organize an event and I see people looking happy, it has value to me, and I think it has value to them because they're smiling. And not all my work has value. There are some things I do because I need to make money. And I'm like, oh, this did not have a lot of value. I hope I did not, damage too many things. But also I need to pay my rent. So, but the most value to me is the satisfaction of putting things together, fixing things, making things a little bit better than what I found them. And I hope the value to the world is what we're talking about, what artists can do for the world, whether it's feeling your feelings, having fun, escaping for 5 minutes, feeling better, healing, all these things.
You just heard from Nadia Says, the co-founder of creative freelancer platform Your Mom's Agency. She's an educator, journalist, and consultant in the fields of culture, music business, music tech, and DEI. You can read more about her and her work in the show notes. Make sure to check out Solitunes on Bandcamp. Your Mom's Agency lends its Bandcamp platform to release a new multi-genre compilation. Features 12 collaborations of music and visual art by over 40 artists who came in solidarity to advocate for Palestinian art, be it music or Tetri's embroidery. All proceeds will be donated to a Palestinian-based composition and recording studio. I'm Mad Kate, and you've been listening to S.W.E.A.T, a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body and work. The theme music was composed by me and features the voice of performer and actress Lori Baldwin. S.W.E.A.T airs every second Tuesday of the month at 13 hours Central European Time on Collaboradio, Free Radios Berlin Brandenburg, broadcasting on 88.4 FM in Berlin, 90.7 FM in Potsdam, and streaming online at fr-bb.org. Afterwards, it's available for streaming wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much. Until next time.